Welcome to Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield. This episode is sponsored by Springs Mental Health Summit, a summit for parents, teachers, neighbors, and friends to talk about mental health in our community. For more information, go to springsummit.org. Here's your host, Trevor Sharon.
Thank you for joining us. Dr. Mayfield and I are joined in studio with David Eaton of Axis Media. And before I butcher what you do there, I'd like for you to introduce yourself to our listeners and explain a little bit about what Axis Media is.
We help parents and their teenagers communicate and understand each other.
Okay.
So that's my simple elevator speech. Maybe if you want to think of it another way, is that we're culture translators. So we help parents enter into the wild foreign country of teenage land,
right,
and understand all the shifts that are happening, and that KYS stands for kill yourself, or that MIA is shorthand for bulimia, or how to appreciate and enjoy and watch out for the ditches that you could fall into with Snapchat or whatever the new app is. So we get to be in this really fun kind of bridge between generations where we equip parents and teens to have an awesome relationship with each other.
So is Snapchat obsolete now, or is it
it's still alive and well.
Okay,
it's
good.
the number one app. But, who knows?
Right.
And that's the crazy thing, is that with Axis, we're going to be around, and when Snapchat becomes uncool and Amino is the new thing, or Instagram rises again and takes the gold medal from Snapchat, we'll be there.
Just as you're introducing all of these acronyms, KYS, MIA, I'm sure. Hopefully,
not missing in action.
Hopefully,
not the singer.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one listening to that and like rolling my eyes of like, okay, what the heck? I've never even
Trevor, how old
heard
are you?
a little bit. I'm 25.
You're 25. I'm 34.
I'm almost 37.
Right, and so like we don't you don't have kids. I have a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 9-week-old. Mark, you got a few baby girls.
Yeah, 10 almost and 4. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think we're rolling our eyes because we don't know that broccoli means weed or whatever the new acronym is, you can imagine that you can, if you have, just being removed from a generation removed is enough for you to feel uncool. And so at Axis, there are 26 of us who wake up every morning, who study and appreciate and try to understand teen culture. And what's awesome about it is that it's not, I'm one of the older guys that's there. I'm 34. So we have some, a whole team of old Gen Z or young millennials who I always have to remind that this is pretty special what you know. Like, you have the insider track, these secrets.
Right.
And so for us, we're just excited to be a team that surrounds a parent. And for the cheesy acronym, you guys ready for the cheesy acronym, is that we'll save a parent time, we'll save you energy, we'll get you answers quickly so that you can have incredible moments with your kid. And I guess I like the acronym just because of moments at the end. Like, we're not going to have those moments between you and your teenager.
Yeah.
We believe there's no one more efficient, more leveraged than a mom or a dad to influence their kid. So, and to love their kid and to like suspend the awkwardness to reach into their kid's world.
Well, I think this is wonderful because I know a lot of parents that we work with here at Mayfield Counseling Centers that don't even know where to start, so they don't try. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that you've given them avenues and places to begin, so it doesn't seem so ominous with the plethora. Like, half the stuff you just said, I'm like, oh, crap, I got to go figure this out myself because I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, we want to remove some of the barriers of entry, and it is intimidating. But just think of it, if you've ever gone on an international trip, which maybe some people listening here haven't gone on, but if you've gone on that, just imagine I haven't been to Italy, but if I go to Italy, I'm just imagining the old man who like sees that I'm a foreigner in his country and wants me to try some of his family's limoncello, or wants me to try whatever, like have this special type of orange that's, native here and that I'm so proud of. That initial like step of appreciation when you're in a foreign land is really important. So even as you're a parent and you're looking at your 14-year-old daughter's world, if you can start off with a heart of appreciation and maybe even humility and maybe even a little bit of wonder where you want to connect, and because it's not all bad. I think it's easy just to throw the baby out with the bathwater, just be like, this is all scary and bad and I hate it. Man, you got to stop, because that's just fear. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to just live in a world of cortisol drips on your brain and like always living in a state of fear, and just, it reminds me of like nightly news.
Right.
There's an opportunity to start off and say, what is good here that I can appreciate? And let me tell the parents who are listening to this is really important, is that you may feel like you're spying, and maybe if your motivation is wrong, it will feel like spying, but if you enter in with appreciation, your child will say, and like many kids have said to the parents who use Access resources, I just appreciate that my mom can understand me better now.
Or cares to understand her better, or him better now.
Putting that effort in. I mean, even when if you're married, when your spouse just tries to appreciate what's going on in the other spouse's life, there is this like, hey, thanks for trying, like like, you're working on it, like, we're going to get better, like, there's hope. And so there's a hope that will happen with you and your teen.
Well, one of the things that we tell our parents here at Mayfield Counseling Centers is that when was the last time you spent time on your kids' level doing what they like? And the pushback is, well, I don't have time. I'm like, well, then don't come talk to me about their behaviors or their hiding or their secrets. And so this is an opportune way to really dig into that relationship piece. They're doing it side by side. They're engaging together. It's the parent being curious about the child's life, the child being proud about sharing these different things and whatnot. And I think it definitely creates that bond and that ability to engage in transition from childhood to adulthood and relationship.
I think about that all the time, Mark, because we've talked and hung out and you've mentioned it, and just to try to say, what did they want? And I think you can always just say that and just observe, just take a posture of appreciation and wonder and see what happens. And then you might be playing Minecraft for a little bit. You might be doing whatever for a little bit. But I think if you're just trying to take your actions and control their actions, you're going to have a war. It's not this, the appreciation and just doing what they enjoy is the connection on a heart level that may lead to changing their mindset, that may lead to them choosing the right behaviors and actions. And that self-regulation is going to be huge. But so I'm going to ask you this question, Dr. Mayfield. Like, what does that look like for a parent to like be incarnational, just like Jesus came into the world that he created, that we live in? How do you do that?
It's intentionality. I think it's putting aside your pride and your, like you said, the judgment or the spying,
postponing judgment.
Right. It's putting those things aside and going, okay, my kid is an individual. They're a human being. They're not a little kid anymore that can be persuaded or controlled, but they are turning into an adult. And so it's that inquisitiveness and that curiosity. And we talk about this all the time here, that an adolescent, a teenager, can spot a fake a mile away. And so if there's ulterior motives for these parents, it's not going to happen. But if there's this genuineness of like, I am like totally lost with these things, help educate me. Or I see that you play a lot of video games and you have your headset on. What's going on? I want to know more about these kinds of things. It's that genuineness that is really important. But I think we have to stop being so busy. Like, honestly, like a lot of our families that we work with, they get home 6 or 7 o'clock at night, try to, maybe if they're lucky, do dinner together, whether it be in front of the TV or in the bar or at the table, and then they go do their homework and go to bed. And so there's not any of that intentional time that is needed for these things. You just can't do that in 5 seconds, can you?
That intentional boredom.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Openness to, no, it's really cool.
Because, like, to ask you, it's parents can't do this in a 5-10 second, show me what's on your Instagram account, I want to make sure. It's like, no, they need to be intentional about, hey, I want you to be my friend and I'll be your friend on Instagram, and we'll sit down and talk through it. And I'm not going to comment on your posts and that kind of stuff. I just want to be a part of your life. And do you feel like that, like, what does that look like from your perspective of parents being
Yeah, the posture
curious.
is, if your kid already has a smartphone, they're already on Instagram, is that it's appropriate for you to ask them if you can follow them. And at least as you're kind of starting in, because you've already kind of ceded that territory to them and given that to them, and so you get to enter in. Now, of course, there's opportunities where you might have to just shut it down, and you still need to be the parent. But I think you would prefer to be winsome and earn that influence. And even at Axis, we have something called the Culture Translator. It's a weekly email that takes 3 or 4 minutes to read that will help you understand what are the 3 shifts that are happening in their culture that week, so you can join the conversation. You have to join the conversation first.
Sure.
And then maybe you can guide the conversation, and then maybe you can deepen it in other areas. So
that's the idea of earning the right to be heard and to be in that relationship. It just is not automatic because you're their parent. It's
right. It's right there. And so even some things that we've seen great families do is have a smartphone curfew. I think it's easy to kind of try to throw Gen Z under the bus, which is teenagers, and say, oh, I can't believe they do this, I can't believe they do that, and be like, well, if you can't believe that, well then, Dad, why are you answering your email at 11 o'clock at night in bed? Like, why, Mom, are you like on Pinterest all the time too? I mean, these incredibly amazing tools that we have, these rectangles that fit in our pocket and hang on our walls, are awesome, but do we have the same level of boundaries that we expect from our children? They're going to be watching us and trying to understand. I mean, it was even that with my daughter the other day, I was like, you have shoes all over the room, and I want you to pick up your shoes. But I was like, why don't you come look at my room first? Do you see my shoes like exploding all over the room? And she like looks around like curiously, can't wait to find my shoes. It's like, no, I keep them over here. And she's like, okay. And so at least I'm trying to lead that simple thing by example. But I think the cell phone or the smartphone is not as easy to do.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, being sensitive to any of our listeners who may feel like they've ceded all of the territory to their teens, how can they come back from that? What's the path that they can take where they've given everything to their teenager? They have a smartphone, they have their own TV in their bedroom. I don't know if that's a thing anymore. And they've just given so much. How do you take that back, or do you take that back?
Well, I think sometimes if there's something that's catastrophic that's happening, you're going to want to kind of lean into that pretty quickly, and also realize yikes, there's some real pitfalls here. But if you're already in, what I would suggest is think about your technology like you would think about a car. You don't just give a 16-year-old a car and just say, here's the keys, what could go wrong? There is training that is involved in a year beforehand. Even here in Colorado, you have to have your permit, I think, for an entire year. There is training. There is you're sitting side by side while they're driving. But the goal is that they drive on their own.
Yeah.
Like, the goal is not that you're in the passenger seat for the rest of their life. And so with smartphones, you're going to want to step back. And I mean, there's a lot that we can talk about here. And I think this is a really important conversation. But even having that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to start off on so maybe you have an 8-year-old and you haven't given them a smartphone yet. Great, that's awesome. When you do, to say, here, I'm going to give it to you, but it's going to have very, very limited functionality. But our goal is to get you fully autonomous where you're self-regulating on your own. And so this thing doesn't own you.
That's a big deal, because when we go out in the community and do talks, parent talks, that kind of stuff, we've got the opposites, the polar opposites, which you probably see too, right? It's not my right to check their phone. It's theirs. It's invasion of privacy. Or the opposite end. Well, my kid's 16, 17, and they're never getting a phone. And like, I'm on this end, it's like, well, okay, first of all, who paid for the phone and who's operating it? Yeah. You do have a right, but it's not a right to spy or whatever. It's relationship. And then you got the other side extreme where it's like, they're going to go off into the world by themselves here very shortly, and they're not prepared. So, like, how do you see that play out from the two polar extremes?
Oh, well, I think, man, there's so much to say here. Some like the short bullet points, and maybe we can come back, like you guys mentioned, and talk about this. But one of the short bullet points with this entire gig is that you don't want to be the one who's always talking about fearful things. And so you want to be the one who's talking about hope. You want to be talking about truth, goodness, and beauty. Yeah. And so to start off with a biblical understanding of what is technology. And technology is the expression of human culture and ingenuity and creativity. We're human beings. We create worlds, We create societies, and technology is a part of that. So to say, hey, the biblical narrative says God made the world very good. It also says because of bad decisions that humanity has made that it's cursed, and now because of the work of Christ in our lives and the work of Jesus that there's this hope of redemption. So therefore, this smartphone is very good. It also has propensity to be cursed, and also we have as an opportunity as a family to redeem it. So you're starting off with that position of like hope, then you start moving. So again, you start saying, well, what is this for? You guys can speak to this, but it seems that the smartphone has caused us to become more depressed and more disconnected than ever before.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you get to say, hey, I want what's best for you. I want you to be whole. I want you to have intimacy and relationship and connection in your life. And so let's talk about this as a family, as how this thing is causing us to be less connected and causing us to be, and might even have that anxiety. We're living more anxious than ever before because of what? Because of this?
Yeah.
Well, so again, you get to answer the second question of what is this for and what are the boundaries that you agree upon.
Right.
And man, then as you're actually into it, I think you got to have a ton of limits. And you release those limits when they show the maturity to make the right decisions with it.
Right. So it's not giving a 9 or 10-year-old a smartphone and go have fun, like you're saying. It's that ratcheted up.
Well, and I was reading something a while ago that was talking about how in adolescence and early childhood, they are being introduced to a whole world that they don't understand. And then we give them a smartphone, and it's a second world that we don't understand. And the problem is the parents don't fully understand it too. So nobody around this kid fully understands the world that they're entering into or the secondary world of the internet. And so they're trying to find their place in both worlds and discover that on their own, essentially.
Well, I think, too, if parents, and this is not the time and place to talk about it, but if parents understood the brain development, too, I think we'd be less likely to give our 10-year-old a smartphone without limits, right? I mean, it's just, it does not work or bode well.
And that's what brings in, it's like there are so many complications with this. And so even I'm sure at Mayfield Clinic and here at Axis, we're trying to figure out how to do a lot of the heavy lifting,
right?
So that you enter into it with some of the basic understanding of brain development, thinking about the cell phone contract or smartphone contract that's agreed upon, and then also thinking what are just the huge pitfalls? Well, there's tons of anxiety that can come from this. There's tons of stress that can come from this. There's a whole world of pornography on everything that's going to rewire my son or daughter's sexuality. Even having a dad who said to us, I am 100% certain that my daughter is questioning her sexuality because of the internet. And you're like, well, really? And he's like, yeah, because she's been able to find communities who have been educating and supporting her behind my back. I didn't even have the chance to speak into this with her. And so before I knew it, she was already on the other side. Or I was asking a group of moms recently, what's the biggest challenge you face? And a mom raised her hand in the back corner. She said, support groups. And I said, well, what do you mean support groups? And she says, well, if I disagree with my son or daughter, they can go online and find a support group that agrees with them. And then all of a sudden, it's them against me.
Right.
And this whole group, and they have their whole team. My kid has their team that supports them. And so that's, again, I'm sure that's what we want here at Mayfield and also at Axis is we'll be your team. We'll help support you as you work through this. And so whether it's you're hopping on the Culture Translator with Axis, a free email that's going to inform you for 3 or 4 minutes a week on changes in student culture, or diving. We have parent guides on 30 different topics right now. Some of them have been very informed by our conversations with Dr. Mayfield, and are all kinds of resources there. It's really hard to do it on your own. So bring that community around you.
And for the parents listening who say, from the first moment you started talking, yes, I'm on board. What's the best way to access this material?
So I co-founded Axis, AXIS, which is just about what's at the center of your life, what's the center of your family, and looking at the intersections of faith, technology, and media. So if you go to axis.org, axis.org, you'll be able to find the Culture Translator. You can actually go there directly, axis.org/CT for Culture Translator. For our parent guides, it's /guides, GUIDES. And the guides are $3, $4 each. way better than trying to figure it out on Wikipedia. Your time is more valuable than that. And also you're going to miss something that, you show up and you're partially informed, which will make your kid make fun of you even more. So we want to save you the travail of some of those things. But yeah, AXIS.
Yeah. And we were talking right before we started recording that you have a sort of subscription system that is available to parents as well.
Yeah, for us, we're thinking about how can we provide a parent with all the tools they need to join, guide, and change the conversation with their kid. So as you're living in this, from the ages of 8 to 18, Axis will come alongside and support you, provide great content so that we disappear in the background so you can connect with the heart of your kid. And so if you go to our website, we have these resources you can buy a la carte, or for $25 a month, we will give, it's more than I can explain right now, but it'll help you foster from on one level just educating and being your research assistant to another level of saying, hey, here's a video that I can watch with my son or daughter that they will think is interesting, that's made for them, that will help you win in a conversation about pornography, that really enmeshes the gospel in this, not a gospel that says fear, 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 scare, 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 but says, hey, let me tell you the hope and the beauty of sexuality as God defines it, and entering into that instead of this perverse, deep, dark internet world that's going to totally wreck your ability to connect and have intimacy with your spouse someday. So we have that full spectrum of content that will help you and save you time, save you energy, so you can have those great moments with your kids.
Well, David, I appreciate you being here today, and I think this opens up for us wanting to have you back and have more in-depth conversations, maybe topical conversations of things that you see are really facing our parents today, like the top of the list type of conversations. But we really appreciate you, appreciate what you're doing, and I just want to make sure that our listeners will have the website attached to this episode. We'll have it on our Facebook page. We'll have it on our website, so that it'll be an easy link to axis.org. But David, thank you so much for coming, and it's great to know that you and your organization are in this fight for the health of our teenagers and for the success as they become adults who are giving back to the world.
One final story to leave you all with is that we had this young lady come up to us. She was a millennial in her 30s, and she said, I've only had one real conversation with my dad. And when we heard that, we're like, uh-oh, this is not good. Why is this happening? You can't have just one real conversation. That's not how it ought to be. But then she paused, and with a sparkle in her eye, she said, we've only had one real conversation, but we've never stopped having that one real conversation. She's having that one conversation with her dad that lasts a lifetime. So as a parent, you're going to have a 60-year conversation with your kid. Through the tough areas of the teenage years, we're there to help you have that one conversation. If you're a grandparent, you're going to have a 30-year, 40-year conversation with your grandkid. If you're a caring adult, you're going to have that conversation for 18 months or for 4 years, or whether you're a teacher or youth pastor. So just know we're in your corner to make it easier for you and to make those moments with your kid even more meaningful.
Cool. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Candid Conversations. If you would like more information, go to mayfieldcounseling.com/candid conversations and check out our Facebook page, Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield.